Hello, BookTube. Welcome to Lizziefayelovesbooks. I'm Elizabeth, and today is Saturday, November 4th, 2017, and I missed my Friday Reads video yesterday, so I thought maybe I would just skip over this week and just go ahead and do my October wrap-up, but I had such a good week, both personally and bookish-wise, and just everything, so I thought I would just go ahead and tell you a little bit about this past week. I celebrated my birthday, and then I will do another video separately where I will wrap everything up and kind of give you my stats for what I read in October. I ended up finishing 22 books in October. I was going for 25. I don't think I ever said that out loud because it sounded kind of scary, but I got to 22, so I'm pretty happy about that. And then I finished 9 books from last Friday to this Friday. Well, I guess from last Saturday morning to this to last night. I finished 9. Now, part of the reason is because I was working on several books ever since the previous weekend from the Dewey's 24-hour readathon, and I was doing a couple of buddy reads that we stretched out over the last 10 days of the month, and so it all kind of came together towards the end of the month. So I want to tell you about what I read. I read some really, really good books these past few days. I am just really excited about what I read, and some of them were just fantastic. So going back to Dewey's 24-hour readathon and the spookathon, I had one book that was going to be my main spookathon book, but I ended up reading Bedlam Lost instead. Both of these are by Jack Castle, who is a friend of mine. So I barely got started with White Death at the end of the spookathon, and I could see that it was going to be a little slower read for me than Bedlam Lost, which was pretty quick. This is still only 200 pages, but for some reason I wasn't motivated to read it quickly. And it is a paranormal, kind of a horror slash thriller book. So I just decided I would just break it up in segments of like 30, 35 pages per day and just chink away at it so that I would make sure I finished it by the end of the month. And I actually did end up finishing it a couple of days before the end of the month, so I was happy about that. And I did do a little review on October 31st of both of these books, so be sure you check that out. All right, so then I mentioned that I had 2 buddy reads. This one, The Good Dream by Donna Van Leer, was narrated on audio by the author, Donna Van Leer. I listened to it on audio with my buddy reader, Chris from Vintage Christelle. We read this together and both really enjoyed it. This has quickly moved up to my at least top 3 books of the year so far. It is just wonderful. It's 1950 Tennessee, I believe. It's from 3 different perspectives. Well, you know what? I did a quick review of it on my channel, so be sure you check that out. I just absolutely loved this book. Then my other buddy read was a reread of The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I had listened to this on audio several years ago for book club, and I think I just kind of raced through it and didn't really pay attention to it. I remember enjoying it, but I could not have told you what it was about, except that I was pretty sure it was a book of letters. However, just listening to it on audio, I didn't really get the full extent of it. I didn't realize, I think, when I first listened to it, that it was all letters. I wasn't even aware of that format or genre at the time. So I really feel like I got a full appreciation for this book. 1946, Guernsey Island, one of the Channel Islands between England and France, and it was just a fantastic book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I buddy read this also with Chris from Vintage Christelle and also Emily Sears, and I thoroughly enjoyed buddy reading this with them. I think this might have been Chris's first time reading it, but it was Emily's and mine, and my second time reading it. At least it was my second. I don't know if Emily had read it more than once or not, but we had a lot of fun discussing this over email. And I'll tell you, Emily Sears, if you don't follow her, you really should. She is a fantastic booktuber. She doesn't have nearly enough subscribers. She has some really good insights. This was the first time I had buddy read anything with her that I can recall, and I just enjoyed her comments so much. She's very detailed. She's a librarian in training. I think she's working on her master's degree in library science, and she can really pick apart a book and talk about really interesting, she can pull out really interesting anecdotes and and comment on really interesting things in the book, and I forget to do stuff like that. So I really enjoyed her comments, and I enjoyed buddy reading with both these gals, and I hope that we can buddy read something else in the future. So that was a reread for me, but it might as well have been the first time reading it for all I remembered about it. Then another book that I read in print that I absolutely loved. This is Quite a Year for Plums by Bailey White. I have read 2 other books by Bailey White that were more vignette in nature. This was a novel, so it flowed a little better. However, it was still in a kind of a similar disjointed style that Bailey White, I guess maybe she's famous for that now. I don't know. She's also an NPR commentator, and I just love her writing style. Her characters in this book are so quirky and so fun. And now this book is not going to be for everyone. It's very agricultural in nature. So if you are an urbanite who's never set foot in the country and don't care to, you might not really enjoy this book. But I grew up on the farm, and I was a real active 4-H'er. I was in the National Junior Horticulture Association, and I totally get where this is coming from, and I'm going to send this to my brother next. He's a retired county agent, and I think he will get a kick out of this book too. The main character is Roger, who is a forester, and then there's just a lot of other fun and quirky characters. Most of them have some type of agricultural about half of them have some sort of agricultural career, and then there are some teachers and retired teachers, and there's an artist, a wildlife artist, and I think a plant pathologist. I don't know. It's a real interesting mix of characters. It takes place in South Georgia, and there are some mentions of some places in North Central Florida, and some places I'm very familiar with, and one very infamous place that I know of, and that is mentioned, and it's just hilarious, and I thought it was awesome. So that was fun. And then on audio, I listened to Love Mercy by Earlene Fowler. I didn't want to start her Benny Harper mystery series just yet, and so I decided to pick this one up. It turns out this is set in the same community. Benny Harper, the main character from the other series, actually makes a cameo appearance in this book. But this is mainly about Love Mercy Johnson and her formerly estranged granddaughter, Rhett, and then another friend of hers, Mel, and you get their the 3 perspectives all throughout the book. It switches it's got multiple points of view. I thought it was a great book. I enjoyed it. It's very good family dynamic, family relationships that have been estranged and are healing, and some other just kind of come to terms with your past kind of things, and healing from previous tragedies, and a lot of those themes. And I thought it was really good. It was narrated by Johanna Parker, and she did a great job. I was able to get this on CD from my local library, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to reading more by Earlene Fowler. She was one of my collected authors that I had never read, and so now I have read one of her books and I really enjoyed it. It says on Goodreads that this is book 1 in the Love Mercy series, but so far there's not any more. So as of right now, this is a standalone, but with the hopes, I guess, that there'll be more in the future. Then another little book that I wasn't really planning to read or listen to, but it was really quick on audio. I had kind of finished up everything that I was listening to on my phone on Hoopla. So I went ahead and borrowed The Bad Beginning, the first book in the series of Unfortunate Events. And the version that I listened to was kind of a radio theater type version. It was narrated mainly by Tim Curry, but there was a full cast of actors who did a lot of the voices, or who did the voices, and it was really good. So I probably will go back and read this in print at some point. I had started reading it in print a couple of years ago. I was subbing at a school, and I was done with everything they needed me to do, but I couldn't leave yet, and so I sat in the school library, picked this off the shelf, and read a few chapters, and I had just never ever picked it back up. Since then, I've collected almost this whole series, and I do hope to get to it maybe in the coming year. So I listened to that, and that was good. Is that 6 now? Did I show you the 6 that I finished in October, for a total then of 22 books for October? So then I had 2 books that I carried over into November. One I have finished, and the other one I haven't picked back up yet. The one I just finished last night is Silver Linings by Debbie Macomber. This is book 4 in the Rose Harbor series. Let me tell you, she really put her characters through the ringer in this book. And there was some tough times emotionally and just all around. But I was happy with it. I thought it was good, and maybe not my favorite of the series so far, but there's just one more book, so I am looking forward to seeing what comes next. And then I had one other book on my currently reading list that I could see that I wasn't going to finish by October, so I kind of have put it aside for now. I will go ahead and keep chinking away at it this month. This is Miss Scarlet's School of Patternless Sewing by Kathy Cano Murillo. I thought this was going to be very light, but then it starts right off with a horrible tragedy, and then it changes gears to someone completely different, and so I'm not really sure how it all ties together yet because I'm only on page 32, but I will keep reading. I just put it aside to go ahead and finish up some shorter stuff just to try to up my totals for October. I know, I'm one of those people. Okay, then for the first couple of days of November, the first book I finished was actually a book I found on Hoopla, a little ebook, and it was a summary and analysis of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Pie Society. Since I was buddy reading this and we were discussing it, I had looked on Hoopla originally to see if this book was on there in ebook form, and it wasn't, but I found the little summary book. So I went ahead and read that on November 1st, and then yesterday then I finished 2 books. I had started this on November 2nd. I was subbing. I had neglected to take anything in my car. And so I had this in my car, and I forgot to give it to my mother-in-law. I had intended to give her this and a couple of other books on November 1st when she took me out to lunch, and I forgot to do it. So this was sitting in my car. It's a little short novella by T. Davis Bunn. I've read his little book called The Quilt, and I gave it 5 stars. This one I didn't enjoy quite as much, but it was still a nice book. It's a Christian, it's got a Christian evangelical message, and it's about these 2 women who are recuperating from surgery in the same hospital room. One is young, high-powered executive, and the other is older and wizened, and so it's a little predictable, but still a very nice story, and I can't think of any other way that I would have wanted it to end. So so I was happy with it, and so I read this, The Gift by T. Davis Bunn, and I guess that's it. So I finished The Gift and the Guernsey summary, and then Silver Linings. Those were the 3 books that I finished so far in the month of November. So what am I reading going forward? Well, I've already done my TBR video for November. I'm going to be focusing mostly on nonfiction. I have already picked up one book that was not on my TBR, and it's an organizing book. It's on my phone, so I can't I'm filming on my phone now, so it's something about organizing for people with ADHD, which I'm undiagnosed, but I'm almost positive that I have some ADD, ADHD stuff going on with me. So I picked that up, and I've only really just kind of read the introduction. I have it, actually I do have it on my Kindle. The reason I picked it up is because I didn't have any other ebooks. Well, no, I did. Well, anyway, I picked it up because I needed something to read a couple nights ago in bed, and my husband already had the lights turned out, and I didn't want to turn the lamp back on. So I was originally going to start the memoir that I have on ebook. That's by Janice J. Richardson. It's a memoir about being a funeral director, and I am going to read that. But for some reason, I was flipping through, scanning through Hoopla, and I through the ebooks, and I found that organizing book, and I ended up borrowing it too. So I have started that, and then of course I read the little summary and analysis of Guernsey, and so that's 2 nonfiction. And then this morning I started Love That Boy. I didn't bring it in here with me, but I'm listening to that on Hoopla Audio, and I also picked up a print copy from the library as well, and that is really good so far. It's by, I think, Robert Fournier, and I've heard several people talking about it, and they it's about a man whose son has Asperger's, and so far it's really enjoyable. And since I have a daughter with autism, I knew that it was something that I really needed to read. So I'll tell you more about that later. And that is pretty much my week in review. Just stay tuned, and I will come back hopefully next Friday with a Friday Reads and let you know what nonfiction and and a few other random fiction books that I'm throwing in that I have read over the next, that I will have read over the next few days. So I will be back then. Meanwhile, I've got my monthly, October monthly wrap up, and I've got my birthday book haul. I also have been buying some Christmas books. I'm not sure how long I want to wait to show you those. I don't think I'm going to wait till December. I'm not going to be able to wait that long. And I have a couple of the libraries around here hold back their Christmas books and like the Friends of the Library, and put them out in November for the Christmas season. So I have been loading up on some Christmas books. Some I wanted and some I didn't know I wanted until I saw them. And I'm excited to show you those. So those will be coming up, in the next week or two. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.